Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. Tonight our guest is Fraternus. We have Jimmy Mitchell, Judd Sparks, and Caleb Wiseman here to talk about this group for young men, and they're going to share what they've gained from it. And it's a great program that's spreading like wildfire across the country.
Right.
Good to see you, Doug.
You too, Father.
For this opening segment, I want to talk about law. Sometimes we hear among theological circles this wanting to almost do away with the law, that we've lost. And when I say the law, I mean the Ten Commandments, the moral teachings of the church and things. And we see that as like a constraint against our freedom. Right. John Paul spoke so eloquently about freedom and you know, it's a power to do good. It grows. Our freedom grows when we do good, and that's what it was given to us for. But if we go back to Deuteronomy 4, chapter 6, at the giving of the law to the Israelites, it says, God says, keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who when they hear all these statutes will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us whenever we call upon him? You know, they took this law, the Ten Commandments written on tablets of stone, put them in the Ark of the Covenant and treasured them and carried them around, eventually building, you know, the tabernacle and eventually a temple to house these words spoken to them of God, of how they were to live, how they are to act, to grow in love, to push aside false idolatry, to grow close to one another. So the law is a precious gift that guides us. So when we talk about mercy today, it's not to be in opposition to the law or to justice, but John Paul again spoke eloquently about how it's a superabundance of justice, that God satisfies justice due to, you know, we losing our, you know, death into the world through sin, and Jesus suffered and died for us to satisfy that justice that we may have life, and that's mercy. That's God reaching out to us to give us mercy, this forgiveness.
Yeah, and you think back when God is talking to Moses and he talks about when he's going to give the law, he says, I will make a covenant with my people. I will be their God, they will be my people, and I will give them my law. The covenant, you know, the giving of the life of God to us and wanting us to give our life back, and the law had everything to do with that covenant, that it, from the beginning, like you said with Deuteronomy, you know, we see that even in Exodus, that this law of God has everything to do. And I love when you had given a homily on this a while back about what God did on Mount Sinai when he gave the law. You know, when you said, don't ever think that God isn't dramatic, Father Mark said in his homily, if any of you remember this. He said, notice the mountain. Notice the mountain. Moses is called up on the mountain. The people are called to the base of the mountain, but he says no one is to come up on the mountain. If they even touch the mountain, they will die. If a cow wanders up in the mountain, it will die. There's smoke coming off the mountain. The mountain is shaking. He's going to give the law. This law has everything to do with the covenant with God and his people, us. And then you go to Matthew 19, where the good master, our Lord, tells the young man or the rich man, if you wish to enter into everlasting life, you must follow the law. You must follow the commandments. And so, yeah, it has everything to do with it. And then from there, you have to want perfection, detach from everything, abandon everything, sell everything, give it to the poor, and follow me. And then you go to Revelation 12, and the great dragon who tries to destroy the woman, and the woman about to give birth in Revelation 12, and the war that breaks out in heaven. And by the end of Revelation 12, what does the dragon do? Because he can't get to the woman, he can't get to Our Lady, he goes off to wage war against her offspring, those who give testimony to Christ and who follow the commandments, who follow the law. So the law has everything to do with our relationship with God, a beautiful, intricate covenant with God. It's powerful. And it is, and mercy is wrapped up inside that law.
And all that still preserves the fact that Christianity isn't just about ethics. It's not just about the law, because Paul makes it clear the law can't save us. You know, knowledge of right and wrong can't save us. I need a Savior. I need Jesus Christ. And as the recent popes have stressed, you know, Christianity is about this encounter with Christ, that we're saved in him and our relationship through him. But living the law leads us to Christ. It opens us up to a deeper relationship. And the thing that kind of worries me sometimes is that this Deuteronomy quote, what God has a God so close to a people, that we lose sight of the preciousness of this is a gift. I mean, we all know devout Christians out there who do not have the fullness of the Catholic faith, very devout, have the Holy Spirit, holy people doing great things, but they're not living that fullness without that teaching that the church preserves infallibly, you know, and hands on to generation after generation. So this is a precious thing that it's challenging. We can be conformed to the spirit of the world, you know, and lose sight of that law. We can have personal failures, but we get up and begin again. We don't do away with the law.
Right.
We don't push it aside.
Well, and like you said, the law leads us to that encounter, that deeper relationship. And obviously it's important to God, or he wouldn't have started everything off with that law.
Right.
It's somewhat like the vows that a husband and wife take. Being faithful to the vows, you could call the law of your marriage, if you want to refer to it as that. You know, I will take you to be my wife, and I will honor you and love you and care for you and protect you from every enemy, foreign and domestic. That's not quite in there, but it's something along those lines.
That's the way you see it.
That's the way I see it. But within that, if I violate that law of my vow, of my marriage, that hurts the relationship.
Right.
But staying faithful to those vows only brings me to a deeper relationship with my wife. It brings me to a deeper union, which then overflows to the children. So those vows, those laws of the marriage, if you want to refer to it as that, does deepen the relationship and the encounter with your spouse.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Fraternus, so don't go away. Back in a moment.
Welcome back. I'm Doug Barry along with Father Mark. We are the Rock House Compadres, the only Rock House Compadres on the planet as far as I've ever heard or discovered. And we're in the Rock House once again. We have people in the Rock House tonight. These are our
Fraterni.
Fraterni. Yeah, they're doing some grooming on the yard and you know, pruning the shrubbery out in front of the Rock House. And we asked them to come on in and sit down and enjoy the show. We have with us Fraternus, with us Jimmy Mitchell. Good to have you back on the show. We've had you on, not specifically for Fraternus,
That's right.
but for other things. You were running for office at one point, weren't you?
How'd you know that?
Yeah, that's what I heard. No, I'm just kidding. You weren't doing that. And you got a couple of young guys with you. You got Judd Sparks and Caleb Wiseman, a couple of 18-year-old young men who are ready to go into battle for the Lord, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Love it. So Fraternus, let's get right to it because time always goes fast on this show. Fraternus is a great organization that's been in the works for several years now, 7, 8 years now, and it is about reaching out to men.
That's right.
Give us a little rundown on how Fraternus got started, what it means.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, there's a group of men, all graduates of FSU, that great university up in Tallahassee. That keeps winning lots of football games. And I'll tell you, they really had this vision for, if you could take the Boy Scouts, you know, for example, and help young men. It's great to tie knots and it's great to understand the outdoors, but to take it one step further and help them grow in virtue and help them become saints and help them discern their vocations. They thought, if we could come up with an organization that big and that influential that could be implemented in Catholic parishes across the country, what would it be? And they just began dreaming. Each of them, and myself included, all have a little bit of that father wound. You know, you grow up feeling, wow, I don't even know what it means to be a man half the time. And to realize the role of mentors in my own life, and that of so many of the gentlemen who started Fraternus years ago, I think it's been a huge impetus as this thing has grown. And you know, right now we're here in Birmingham, Alabama, and we got some very brand new Fraternus brothers behind us, which just excites me to no end. But the goal is to really get to the heart of the deepest wound in society today, which is fatherlessness, and to really empower men of parishes to live their baptismal call, which is to pass on the faith to the next generation of boys.
Right. And how many years ago did this conversation begin?
Oh, probably 8 or 9 years ago. I think Fraternus began piloting in 2008. I got very, very involved in 2009, worked full-time for Fraternus for 2 years, and have seen the program grow. Right now, it's only in about 16, 17 parishes across the country, but the requests are coming in like rapid fire right now, which is very exciting.
Now, I just want to kind of paint a picture for people. What was the first conversation like? Where were you at? Were you out in the woods? Were you hunting bear by hand?
I was a seminarian at the time.
You were a seminarian?
That's right. I actually flew in from Columbus, Ohio, straight down to somewhere in Central Florida for the first ever Fraternus excursion, and there was about 75 young men. This was my first exposure to Fraternus. There had been many conversations preceding this one. But the first time I saw it was two parishes came together for a fall weekend excursion in the mountains. And I saw Mass in the Woods, JP2 style. I saw...
Hold on, you said mountains in Florida?
Yeah, there's some of them. Every now and then you bump into...
Where?
Well, I guess it would probably been like a campground, you know. There had to have been a hill or two.
I'm from Nebraska where we have real mountains. Wait a minute. Oh, it's the state next to us. That's it.
That's right.
Iowa.
That's right.
No, the other side. Okay, so 75 or so guys hanging out.
That's right.
And what was the response from these guys at this first?
Well, I was deeply moved just to be a small part of it, to see these guys out of their comfort zone, in the wilderness, exploring what it means to be a man of chastity, integrity, discipleship, as all these fathers around and priests. And I think I was probably one of the few seminarians who had showed up for that particular weekend. And I realized this is special. Brotherhood can not only heal the wounds of a young man's heart, he can bring strength and real grace along the journey of faith.
And define Fraternus for everybody.
Sure. It's a virtue-based mentoring and discipleship program for middle school and high school boys.
And the word means what?
Oh, it means brotherly. In Latin, it means brotherly.
Fraternus is brotherly in Latin.
Yeah.
Okay, so parents now, when your boys are acting up in the house, you can say, Fraternus, all of you, Fraternus. What's that? Be brotherly to one another, please.
That's right.
Go easy on the furniture.
That's right.
Okay, so you got a couple of young men, and you pick these guys out of the thousands and thousands that are out there.
They're some of the best.
Well, yeah. Jimmy, before we get to them and let them talk, let the camera just kind of show their just rugged, individualistic Catholic look. And yeah, oh, gun show, look out. Do you have a concealed carry for those? Okay. All right. Why did you pick these two gentlemen to come onto the show?
It's been awesome journeying with both of these guys, sort of as an older brother through the years. Judd I've known since he was a strapping 11-year-old in the 6th grade. Caleb I've known for 3 years, and I've seen the fruits of Fraternus in these guys' lives. And now they're both at a point where they're really helping lead. They've become the mentors that once, I think, were instrumental in changing their lives. So it's going to be fun to hear their stories tonight.
Okay. We'll get more into the stories a little bit later, but just right now I want to ask, Judd, for you, you're 18 years old. You've been doing this for how many years now?
I've been doing it since 6th grade, so quite a bit now.
Yeah, all right. And when you first started it, were you all excited about it, or was there any kind of trepidation or reluctance or I don't want to do this sort of attitude?
When I first started, I was really hesitant on it. Like, I didn't really know anyone, but then I got there and it was so much fun. I enjoyed every single moment of it, and it's really built me into the man that I am today.
Okay. We just have to find out what kind of man that is. So we'll be doing push-ups and running laps and pull-ups during the break just to see. Caleb, what about you? How many years have you been involved in this?
I've been involved for 3 years.
Okay.
I started my sophomore year of high school.
What was it that got you started that first time? Was it mom or dad or someone said, hey, you're going to this thing?
No, I don't believe my parents had anything to do with me going there. Jimmy actually invited me to one of the Hawk Nights, which is a meeting more geared towards the high school guys. And it was something I'd really been craving, was some brotherly love to hold me accountable and help me grow in my faith. And it just, when he invited me to come, just out of the blue, I took advantage of it.
Wow, awesome. Okay. Judd, now you were stealing cars at that time, right? You were on the streets and...
Yeah, pretty much.
He was about this tall, by the way.
We are kidding about the stealing car stuff. That is not, at least not that I know of. But what was your life like at that point? I'll ask you first, Judd. With regards to how you were living your faith, were you just going through motions? Were you already taking ownership of your faith? Kind of where were you at?
I didn't really know much about my faith. Like, I was in 6th grade. I had been born and raised to love God, but I didn't know what that meant. And through fellowship with like brothers and just our squad time, that helped me grow and learn what my faith was all about.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Caleb? Where were you with regards to living your faith when you got into this? Because you said that you were craving something like this, some sort of camaraderie, some sort of accountability and such. But where were you with regards to your faith at that point?
At that point, I was Catholic. I was going to a Catholic high school. I knew what it meant to be Catholic, but I was just going through the motions, just kind of on autopilot through it. And I was craving just more sustenance to my faith, to really understand what it means to be a man of Christ.
All right. Jimmy, is this pretty standard operating for what you hear from the other guys? I mean, are most guys who get into Fraternus kind of at that point, just kind of going through motions, kind of there, but not really there?
I would say it runs the gamut, honestly. I mean, these two guys are so different in personality and background and upbringing, quite frankly. One of the few things they share is their Catholic faith in the city of Nashville. So I think what I've noticed is there's something universal about the idea of brotherhood. You know, we've got some amazing guys behind me here. I think are mostly homeschooled here in the Diocese of Birmingham. Judd goes to public school. Caleb goes to Catholic school. And yet there's this common touch point of brotherhood and discipleship and, you know this well, challenge. Like really challenging these guys to live the virtues. And I think that's what happens week in and week out. They go home and suddenly they're praying a morning offering because Fraternus said, step up, give it a go.
This is good.
And then it just sort of escalates from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about some of these guys back here because I'm looking over your shoulder and a couple of these guys got some shifty eyes back here. I'm not feeling 100% comfortable with. We may have to do a little shakedown during the break and make sure everything's all right back here. So, talk about you, man. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so what ages generally get started in this, or is it all ages, or from what to what do you normally see?
6th to 12th grade, age 11 to 18. Every now and then a 5th grader sneaks in, but we don't know any better, so we let him go. And I think that's what's cool. You know, Judd's one of the few examples of somebody who has been through the program from the beginning to the end. I've actually never known anybody else who's done that, minus one or two guys his age in Nashville. So that's pretty cool, and I think that's right at that age where boys stop listening to their parents and they start beginning to test the limits. And if they have mentors in their life, I think they're stepping in to love them and to challenge them and to encourage them along the way. Can be pretty transformative. And I've just seen the fruits in Nashville alone, and then of course abroad as well and beyond Nashville.
Now, but you've also got adult men that show for this as well, and not just the organizers and guys like yourself who were volunteering or helping to coordinate it. But fathers are coming out to this as well, right?
That's right. I think that's one of the things that's so unique about it, actually, is that it engages men of the parish. I've been involved with a lot of different youth ministry organizations through the years. Fraternus seems to get the men that otherwise would never be involved in the lives of young people. The best example that I can think of that would be relevant to the show today is Judd's dad, who's been, I think, as involved as you have through the years. And there's sort of this cool dynamic now of his dad coming along with Judd and his younger brother Jennings. They're all J's, by the way. His name is Jeff. And you could probably speak to that. You know, what's it meant for your dad to be involved?
It's probably meant for my dad. It's had the same effect as it had on us, like if not more. He embraces it and he loves it. He probably has more fun than we do at frat nights when we're like playing dodgeball and
he gets in there. He ain't scared.
No, he's not at all, and he enjoys it, and it's great because I'm able to learn. I mean, my dad's at my house, and I learn from him. But then seeing him lead other guys it's inspiring, and it makes me want to be like him.
All right. Now, in the first time you went with your dad, what was the conversation like afterwards? Like, hey, Dad, this is great. Hey, son, this is great. Or not much being said. I mean, what was it like at the beginning?
My dad, afterwards, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. He's like, I had a lot of time. I had a great time. He was like, this is the best thing ever. And I was like, yeah. I took a little bit more to convince, but he dove in right away, and he brought me with him. So I'm here, and it's great.
Now, there had to come a time for both of you guys somewhere along the line where, you mentioned, Caleb, about looking for some sort of, brotherly accountability and that kind of camaraderie and such. Real Christian love is brothers really crave, which is one of the reasons a lot of guys play sports, a lot of guys, in the military, they have that same sort of desire to have that brotherly, that camaraderie, that band of brothers sort of thing. And even, when we, in the disordered side of things, gang life, gang activity, there's still something about the desire for brotherhood, even though it's disordered in a gang type of scenario. But what was the point, or was there a time for you guys, and start with you, Caleb, where all of a sudden you realize, I got to take ownership of this, and I've got to really, in my heart, really make this mine, my faith in this whole process, really make it mine. Did you recognize a time when that happened? What was that like?
I wouldn't say it was a specific time, more as just I grew into it from consistency. Consistently starting to go to daily mass, which I was encouraged to do by my brothers through Fraternus. And at that point, I really started to understand that, hey, God is important, my faith life is important, this is something I needed to make a focus on. And my brotherhood through Fraternus was the gateway to me understanding that for my own life.
So just slowly over time, which is great because, I mean, the sudden moments are exciting, but when there's that build of a consistency, the perseverance over time, it sometimes seems to take a little deeper root, I think. What about you, Judd? Was there a moment of time, or was it like Caleb, just kind of over time?
I think it was building over time, and then I stopped going to Fraternus for a while. And that was just a real tough, I mean, that was a difficult part of my life. And I learned from it, though. And like when I got back, I was like, wow, these guys are here for me. These guys and I can put anything on them, and they will be able to relate and help me. And it will ultimately all come closer.
So you were left for a while, and then when you came back, you realized these guys are...
I was like, these guys are the real deal.
Right.
Like, this is what I need. And I mean, our ultimate goal, we're brothers. And all of us, we have the same goal, and we're all disciples of Christ. And that's to get to heaven. And we're trying to get each other to heaven, and they're helping me the best.
That's it. I like that. That's like military. You go on a mission, you want to get your whole team back alive. You want to get your whole team back alive. And in this case, we want to get our whole team together in heaven. That's what we're shooting for. All right, we're going to take a break, come back with more after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to Life on the Rock. I'm Doug Barry along with Father Mark. We are the Rock House Compadres, and we have with us gentlemen from Fraternus, Jimmy Mitchell, we have Judd Sparks, and Caleb Wiseman. Right there. There's Caleb right there. Yeah. And we have a lot of young Fraternus guys in the back here. These guys are looking good, looking sharp, and one day hoping to be as tall as some of these guys up here. All right. Just keep it up, keep eating. All right. Jimmy, tell us a bit more about the different things that go on in Fraternus, the different events, the different activities.
There's basically 4 program elements. So the first is the frat night, which happens every week at the parish, where you've got pretty high intensity sports, followed by dinner, movie clip, talk. They break into squad time, which is really just age specific, small groups. In Nashville, we always have a priest here in confessions, and we keep them pretty busy during the last hour of Fraternus. We come together for some form of a night prayer, usually Compline or maybe a decade of the Rosary, and then we wrap it up. So that's frat night every other month. All those guys go on a hiking, camping, fishing, canoeing trip. We call those excursions. And in the summertime, we have a week-long camp, which we call Ranch. And then these guys have been involved with this, but it's not always happening everywhere. Where possible, we have captains like myself who do a little more than the weekly frat night and run something called Hawk, which is a weekly discipleship group for these guys that want to go a little bit deeper, who want to learn a little bit more how to pray with the mind of the church, go to confession even more regularly, and ultimately I think a lot of them use that forum to discern their vocation too.
And does Hawk stand for anything? It's HAWC, right?
That's right.
And what is that?
Honest, accountable, willing, and chaste. That's what it's all about.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Do you like that?
Yes, sir.
I like it.
Yeah. Especially the honest part.
That's right.
Yes.
And the accountable part. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The chase part is good too. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, these guys really lead Hawk nowadays.
Awesome.
I'm doing more to step back as much as possible, and if I can pour into these guys so they can pour into the younger guys, all the better.
Okay, so what's that like for you guys? Caleb, we'll start with you. What's that like to be in a position of leadership now, especially something like this Hawk type event?
Well, first of all, it makes me more accountable for myself because I'm leading these guys. I have to lead by example as well as at the meetings.
Right.
And it really makes me understand myself more, because to be able to mentor to these guys that are freshmen and sophomores and even juniors, and even guys my age, I need to be steady in my faith so that I can offer some sustainability to them as well.
Right. Right. That's great that you look at it that way, that you see it as not a power trip. So you're not thinking one day, this is making you think one day I'm going to run my own country. It's not that sort of thing. It's not a power hungry move, Ben, right? That's you. That's you. I thought so. It's the way you comb your hair. You just look that type of guy. It's like you. I'm worried about you. No, just kidding, man. And what about you? What about you, Judd? What's it like for you to be in that position now of leadership? You've been through this for many years, and now you got these young guys, and they're looking up to you, and not just because you're taller than them, but they're looking up to you because you've been around. You guys have that consistency. You've been in the system, but now you're leading them. What's it like for you?
It's a pretty big step for me. It's a leadership role, and I guess accountability as well as, and it's just having it like helping other guys and grow in their faith, and at the same time I grow in mine. Honestly, I think that what I get way more out of it than they do, because the insights that they have it's pretty amazing.
I think one thing that's really good about that too is, when young men and even into college, after college, we're so focused on developing skills. You got to get the education, you got to have a job, and all that's good, but it's like the service aspect of it, helping somebody else along is often second.
Right.
So I think that's a great thing to bring back and just plant that seed early, that's authentic masculinity, is service and helping others.
Yeah, good point, because it leads to the greatest expression of true masculinity, which is duty in imitation of Christ. Regardless of a person's vocation or their gifts, their talents, is fulfilling the duty God places before you. When you want to cry out, if this cup can pass, please let it pass. But you still say, your will be done, not mine, and then you carry your cross and lay your life down on the line, husband, father, priest, whatever it may be. So you see this in these guys. What's it like for you, Jimmy, to watch these guys grow and now see them as leaders?
It's been actually the most meaningful thing that I've been a part of up until this point in my life, quite frankly. I had an older brother growing up that gave me a hard time quite a bit. And so I never had this experience of an older brother who was proud of me, who encouraged me, who challenged me in all the right ways. And he ended up, God rest his soul, dying of a drug overdose about 4 years ago. And that was right in the midst of me being very, very involved with Fraternus. And something about that shook me up, and I realized that I so desperately wanted to be the older brother to these guys that my brother, for whatever reason, couldn't be for me. And so for me, it's been transformative. Most of them have far surpassed me, not in age, but in grace at this point. And so that's really humbling and really beautiful. In the last 6 years alone, just in the little city of Nashville, a mission diocese, we've had 12 seminarians, and I think 4 or 5 of them I've been able to kind of personally mentor through their high school years.
And I was going to bring that up too, because that's one thing that this all seems to be leading towards, is you're developing relationship with God. You're developing a consistent, accountable prayer life. You've got brothers to help you in that formation of the mindset and the character and so forth, the spiritual character. That it has to lead to vocations, in the sense that it opens in the connection with God. It opens the heart to be able to hear Him. And I'm just one of these firm believers that when people say, we need to pray that God will call more men to the priesthood, I'm thinking He is.
Yeah.
He is. He's calling more women to the religious life and men to the priesthood, and to be religious brothers. But we're so distracted by the things of the world. If we don't have a conversation with God, how are we going to hear Him when He's calling us?
That's right.
So you've created an environment that allows men to listen to God, to talk to God. So yeah, talk more about the vocations of it, because that was my thought, is that this only would lead to that. Better marriages for the guys that eventually get married, because they'll understand more their role as husband and father. But also, my goodness, they have to be hearing God call them to be a priest and a brother. Yeah,
it's amazing. I think sometimes we get the bad rap of being a vocation machine, but the reality is we're just helping young men grow in virtue and be authentic and have a prayer life, to really know what it looks like to enter into a loving dialogue with Jesus Christ every day. Caleb could speak to this, because we just did a little seminary sprint. This was probably 3 weeks ago. And the guys that we visited, there was several that had been very involved with Fraternus, and would probably say that it was a big part of their discernment of even going to seminary. What was that trip like for you? What did that open up in your mind and in your heart about the possibilities of the priesthood? Because you've done that twice now, I think.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to go on that trip last year and this year. And really it just opened up my heart to see that as a possibility for my future. Right now I see my vocation as being a holy high school student and doing the best at being that. But through Fraternus, I've come to realize that my future may entail the priesthood, and it has opened me up to being able to discern that.
It's cool.
And when you've got the brotherhood around you of all the guys there, the support system is there because nobody's looking at you thinking, what are you, crazy? What about all the girls you're not going to be able to date?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even play video games in the seminary, which isn't true. They do play video games in the seminary. And even after. But you don't have, they have to worry about that. You have to worry about the guys putting you down or giving you a hard time. Yeah, Father?
Although, Doug, I did hear that our seminary we use, they did take out the video games.
Oh, they did?
They did. They did.
Ah, very good. St. Francis would be proud.
That's Mount St. Mary's. I wouldn't say it, but.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good.
Can I make a point real
Yeah,
quick
sure.
too? I think Jimmy touched upon something with his older brother and wanting some mentoring there. And I've noticed that in the Fraternus group. Is it Jason Craig, your executive director?
That's right.
You know, I think he came from a divorced home, and he talked about this wanting. I went to a talk of his, the father wound, wanting a dad in your life. And I think some guys might want to stand back and say, well, I didn't have a great upbringing. I didn't have all this in place for me, so how can I give it to others? But I think we kind of fill that lack by giving it to others and growing in that role as a mentor, a brother, a father. And so just say that just so people don't stay away from it thinking they don't have anything to give. And
Right.
I feel like that's such a call we need to give to men is show up. It's in your DNA. It's who you are, that you can have a special role to other young men just by the fact that you're a man.
It's a good point because I had just given a talk recently in Hays, Kansas, college campus down there, and talked to, about 70 or 80 or so college students, men and women. And I brought some of this up, and I said, look, I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm talking to you young guys who are on the verge of getting married in the next several years, and I just got to say something to you that I know many of you have probably never heard from anyone before. Your role as a husband and father is to get your wife to heaven and to point your kids the right direction. And we talked about that, and I said, you got to do it with the attitude of a warrior. And I went through all this, and then afterwards, out at the table where I have some materials, to offer people, a young man walked up, and he's probably 20, 21 years old, and he said, how did this happen? You said that your father had passed away. My father died from alcoholism. 23 years ago. He didn't teach me anything about the faith, and I don't have any ill feelings towards my father. I don't think he was taught anything. He it's my father wound, if you want to call it that. So I grew up really knowing nothing from him about what it is to be a husband, father, man, and so forth, especially a spiritual man. So the kid asked me this, a young man asked me this, and I said essentially that, Father, it's in our DNA to be men, to be warriors, to be fighters, protectors, and defenders. God has created it in us. You get the right mentoring, the right examples of other people, and it can set you on fire. But to me, there was no real man here or there that really did that. Mm-hmm. It was when I heard about Our Lady of Fatima and the realization of the Blessed Mother's call, and I believe it was Our Lady who prompted me to be the man to want to defend Our Lady. That kind of an attitude, because men do respond to women, don't we, guys?
And, and that's the path to healing your own wounds, is to
exactly.
give, to grow. That's how you mature, by giving it.
Right, right. But I agree with that, Father, and I'm sure you see that too. I mean, we do have the father wounds. We have the lack of male mentor wounds, if you want to call it that. I mean, we lack it from uncles and grandfathers and such. It's just kind of a desert out there of guys wandering around, looking for some sort of leadership and direction in the middle of a sandstorm. Is that kind of describing what you see?
I'd say absolutely. In fact, just a few months ago, Bishop Olmsted released a document specifically to the men of his diocese.
Into the breach.
I couldn't put it down, and I was so floored by his vision for what it looks like for men to be men. I think what we're talking about in terms of woundedness too, it strikes at the heart of what it means to be a Christian. I mean, to believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross, and that the same power that rose him from the dead 3 days later can resurrect our hearts, is to believe in the gospel, is to believe that our deepest wounds can become fountains of life. And I've experienced that firsthand. Doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, it's really messy and really painful at times. But when you see these men step into these roles as spiritual fathers, as older brothers in the faith, the grace just sort of abounds, most particularly when they're broken.
And isn't it true, though, Jimmy, and you guys probably could say this too at your age now, that really the messier and the harder, more difficult it is, the more meaningful and the better you actually can come out on the other side of it.
That's right.
I always say, if it's not worth doing, well, it's not worth doing at all. If there's no challenge, there's no growth. There's no struggle. There's no strength. I mean, you need that. You don't go to the weight room and do a couple of warm-up sets and then walk out of there. Yeah, that'll put a few pounds of muscle on. No, you got to get in there and really feel it and break it down. Got to break down the cells so they'll grow back. And isn't it kind of the same thing with men? Sometimes the harder path we take, when we let God in there and the brotherhood, that can make us the better man in the end.
Absolutely. Early in the first few years at Fraternus, we used a phrase a lot called "take the challenge," which I think has been helpful for my own sake, as well as so many of these young men in their lives of prayer and their pursuit of virtue and their overcoming by God's grace, struggles in purity and chastity and pride and selfishness, all these things that as men we're going to struggle with. There is something amazing about self-mastery. By God's grace, that self-mastery, that virtue, it's joyful. It's wonderful to know that you're not a slave to your passions and to your wayward desires.
Yeah.
It does a lot for one's strength and confidence to face anything.
It fits right in with the attitude of a man. We want to be conquerors.
Right.
And when that's ordered to God the right way, then we want to conquer those things that are destructive inside of us, and we want to conquer those elements of evil that are hurting what is holy, noble, and true. One of my favorite quotes, stem from the book of Sirach, is "Master your passions, or they will master you." We have to be the masters of those passions, only by God's grace, of course. All right, 1 minute before we take the break here, and then come back in a little deeper stuff. Get deep on some of this stuff here. But before we go to the break here, tell me this, Jimmy. What would you say is the number one positive result you've seen overall from the fathers being part of these events, seeing the fathers coming to these things?
I think it's actually brought about a renewal of many of these families. Because there's, for example, a family that I'm really, really close to. This dad has been praying, the nightly rosary, leading the nightly rosary for years. 6 beautiful kids, one of whom is a seminarian and one of our best friends. But he got involved with Fraternus about 1.5 years ago. And I think it's been amazing to watch him become this leader in the faith. Beyond leading prayers, even in the way that he gets in there and loves these young men and loves his own sons. And I think it's probably brought about a deeper commitment to prayer in the lives of many of these fathers, and a realization that, hey, there's only one thing necessary, and that's preparing our souls for heaven. And once you're on that track, you want to bring as many souls with you. So I see that happening consistently with these dads.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back, one more segment with these great men from Fraternus. Don't go away. Back after this. And we're back. Welcome to Life on the Rock. I'm Doug Barry, along with Father Mark. We have Fraternus with us. We have Jimmy Mitchell, we have Judd Sparks, and we have Caleb Wiseman. These gentlemen are from Fraternus. Fraternus has been around since 1872. Oh, no, not that long.
Yeah.
It has been.
I wish. No, 2007, 2008.
Oh, 2000.
Yeah,
okay. All right. So not quite as long as I was thinking. All right. But before we get into the deeper aspects of this, let's get through some of the housekeeping or administrative side of it. Fraternus is a parish-based sort of program.
That's right.
So people watching or listening right now, they could structure something like this within their own parish. Where is this already taking shape and taking place in the country, and what can people do in order to take that next step to look into setting it up in their area?
Yeah, if you live anywhere near Middle Tennessee, the Panhandle of Florida, all over Washington State now, and a few other places like North Carolina, you ought to just find a chapter and see what's happening, because it'll, I think, really inspire the vision even deeper in your hearts.
And they can find those locations on your website?
Absolutely. It's all on the website. It's really easy to basically submit a form where you can, I'm interested in a chapter. What do I have to do? What does it take? Frankly, if you have a supportive pastor, a group of men who can really step up and lead this thing, and a space to meet, you've got a Fraternus chapter.
Okay,
so it's pretty simple.
Handful of guys and a pastor who really recognize that we have a serious crisis of manhood in our world.
That's right.
And the devil has known If you want to tear down family, you divide the heart and the head of the home, and you separate them out, and you just make the head of the home, the spiritual leadership, you just make it dead. You just kill it. You're distracted by the world, and that's what's been going on. We put far too much time. Look, I'm a big fan of sports. Okay, I'm a Packer fan, by the way. Go Pack! All right, but I tell you this: far too much time put into sports, and not nearly enough time put into relationship with God, relationship with family. And so we men have to take that attitude of you know, let's go get it, let's take charge, let's make things happen, and put that into the matters of faith, matters of soul.
That's right.
Okay, so the website has come up on the TV screen several times, but for the audience listening via El Radio.
That's right. It's fraternus.net, F-R-A-T-E-R-N-U-S.net. And again, it's so easy to find information online, but the main thing would be parish, priest, and men. And then, you know, it doesn't take much. There's no full-time staff members. There's no part-time staff members. It's a bunch of volunteers, and it really works.
For the guys that are thinking, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, if there's a roll of duct tape involved, I can handle it. But if there isn't, how do I handle this? How do I take the steps? So
yeah, that's a great point.
You have all that laid out on the site, and you guys will help kind of move the guys through the motions and make it happen.
Thank the Lord, it's all set up pretty easily on the website, so that all the content you need is right there. The movie clip, the curriculum that you'll be using. I mean, you're really entering into a mini process of formation to just be a Fraternus captain. But 2 hours a week, that's about all it takes to really commit.
Yeah, and this is about forming young men, and assisting in the formation of even adult men who have had maybe years of struggle, maybe still battling the father wounds, and have never had the opportunity to come together, but are still longing for it, because every man does. We long to be better men. We want to be better men. But you've got something also, counterpart for the ladies now. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was always the question. What are you going to do for the girls? And we said, well, we're going to give them great husbands, you know. But then we decided we should probably start a program for girls, and it's called Fidelis. It's not in nearly as many parishes, but it is, I think, growing, and it's been amazingly fruitful. I was just out in Bremerton, Washington back in August, helping lead a week-long excursion for a bunch of Fraternus brothers, literally middle of nowhere, and there was, I think, about 40, 50 young girls doing the exact same thing, you know, an hour away from there. So it's growing, and it's a great opportunity to bring a whole parish together to help men and women really pass on the faith to their sons and daughters.
Right. And this is one of the things that I find so amazing about what's happening in the United States. You know, I remember being in Australia several years ago, and a guy telling me when I asked him, what are you doing down here to evangelize? And he says, we're watching you people in the States. He says, because we see fighters in the States.
That's right. I
mean, organizations like EWTN and all the great Catholic ministries that we have on Life on the Rocks, so many for so many years, Father, that, you know, all the activity going on in our country, doing things like this that are forming and shaping character and helping to elevate and raise the bar for people.
I have a lot of friends in the UK. They say the same thing. They're really looking towards the Catholic Church in America to lead the new evangelization. And that's exciting. And, you know, they're crazy about Bishop Barron, and they're crazy about EWTN, and they're crazy about
Life on the Rock.
Life on the Rock.
Amen.
That's right.
I
Doug
didn't set
Barry.
that up, did I? No, not me. Life on the Rock.
It's amazing, though. You know, it's it's actually humbling to think that here we are, the ones who inherited the faith from so many of our European ancestors, and now we're giving it back to them centuries later.
And you think about that, you know, what the Lord did through Mother Angelica, you know, back in 81 or so when this network got started, you know, with those words when she saw the TV network, and she said, I got to get me one of those. And here you have it. And it's reaching potentially 250 million homes, you know, this very moment. And then, of course, through radio. All right, we've got about 8 minutes left here, and a couple of things we want to address. But one of the things I think is really important to mention, you know, with this whole idea of formation and shaping, you know, hearts and minds and souls, is that this is about generations to come. This is not just about you guys right here. This is about generations to come after we're all dead. Of trying to pass this on to the faith, or pass this faith on to those that have not even, you know, been conceived yet, that have not been born yet. And there's a certain responsibility about that we have to take seriously. And we see the signs of the times around us. You know, shame on us if we don't do something, if we don't do more, if we don't respond. Now, something that strikes me here, though, is this. You know, mentioning Mother Angelica, you know, she saw the need, she felt the prompting of God, of course, to create this network. But there was something deep inside her heart that drove her. And the times, you know, you hear from the writings about her praying before the Blessed Sacrament, even in tears at times. Makes me think of past saints, such as St. Dominic. When St. Dominic was preaching to the Albigensians, couldn't get him to break, couldn't get really make that movement like he wanted. He went into the woods for several days and prayed and fasted, and Our Lady appeared and said, you know, do you want to know what weapon the Blessed Trinity wants you to use in this war? for souls, effectively, right? And it was the rosary. She says, my angelic salt are the rosary. But Dominic, as a man, went to that point where deep in his heart, that's where I'm going with you two guys, deep in his heart, that call, that prompting, that movement down deep inside. So all the nice activities aside, let's start with you, Judd. Down deep inside your heart when you're praying, now that you're becoming an adult man, what's going on inside there now after you've had all these years of formation through the brotherhood of something like Fraternus in relation to being a Catholic man in the world that we're living in? Whoa, the big picture. What's that like for you as a man? What are you feeling and sensing inside? How's God moving you?
God's moving me like, there's so many temptations in the world, and God is moving in through my brothers. He's enabled me to get closer to him through prayer, and that's what we focus on at Fraternus, and that's prayer, and not just out loud, but like deep within you, and just praying for him to guide you and put your trust in him. We often try to do everything on our own, and we get cocky and we're like, hey, I can do this, and that's when we fall. And that's when those temptations, when they get us, it's when our pride's too high. And
That's great if you can get that lesson young.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a lot of pain. You know?
Yeah, that's wise words right there. I agree with Father. Wow, get it now, because if you don't, you carry it a long time. It's a battle your whole life, but it's better to get working on it at a young age. Good for you, man. Yeah. Caleb, how about you? Let's jump to you for running out of time here. Down inside your heart, what kind of passion and sense do you feel the Holy Spirit, our Blessed Mother, prompting inside of you, our Lord to move you to be that warrior-minded man in today's world?
Well, the world's kind of confusing, especially for a young high school kid, 15, 16 years old. You don't know what you're going to do. And through Fraternus and through deepening my prayer life, I've realized, the church is going to need leadership in the years to come. The old bishops, the priests, we're going to be those people in time to come. And we need to prepare ourselves now to be able to step up and take that leadership later. And I think Fraternus has offered that to me, the confidence that I need to step up.
Both excellent answers. And to comment on yours as well, I mean, bring them both together. Deal with the pride, deal with those moments when you get cocky, because men do this a lot. Men are good at that. Men are like, I can take care of it. I can do this. I don't need any help. Or me and my buddies will take care of it. It's about what I can handle, rather than realizing that it's only when I surrender and detach from what I think I can do and give it over to God that things can really get done. But recognizing the responsibility we have, especially as men, to be spiritual heads of the homes, families, priests, bishops, leaders. My job as a 50-year-old man to help encourage you guys, even you at 29 and you guys at 18, to try to be some kind of example, at least as a husband and father, and encourage you guys, keep fighting that fight, keep taking care of yourself, body, mind, and soul, be ready to go for whatever God calls you to, because that's right, generations to come, counting. So when I'm dead and in the ground, you guys are grown up, you'll be 50 and you'll be thinking, remember that crazy guy sitting there with the camo pants and the funny looking haircut? Yeah, what was he saying to us? Be warriors, be close to our blessed, yes, hair, she says hair, yes, I have some hair. But seriously, be warrior-minded, be that man of a passion for the Lord. Think of Saint Jeremiah when he said, I will not preach your name anymore. And then eventually he says, but then it becomes like fire burning in my heart, imprisoned in my bones. I grow weary holding it in. I must do this. The passion inside, the Holy Spirit driving him. Jimmy, what's the future? What's the future of this now? Last couple minutes here.
It's a great question. I mean, I think the hope is that Fraternus grows to the point that one day it would no longer be necessary to have a program, to actually inspire men to mentor their sons. I mean, I think that's any good nonprofit ministry in the church should be trying to put itself out of business.
Yeah.
The vision of Fraternus is not just for those who happen to have a program at their parish. It's really for every man till their baptismal call. I think a lot of young men out there, I'll just say this to you all, you got to be encouraged because there's so many beautiful things happening. It is so possible to be a saint in modern culture. In fact, it's never been so dark and despairing a time, at least in my short 29 years. And I think there's a lot of excuses, It's easy to think of, Abraham, he thought, gosh, he was too old and Jeremiah, or he thought he was too young, and then you got Jonah, who was a coward, and St. Peter, who denied Christ, and Paul, who persecuted him. Lazarus was dead, and we, as a generation of young men, and our dads alongside of us, we have an opportunity to rise up in the splendor of truth and to live what it means to be a Catholic man. And I want to be a part of that till the day I die, whether it's through helping start Fraternus chapters or have my own family one day.
And you know what, Jimmy? I'll add to that last thought. There is far too much at stake for us men to take this lightly. Far too much at stake for us to lay our sword down in the battlefield and walk away from this. There are souls at stake. There are future families at stake. The church's presence in this world. When Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI said several years ago that the presence of God is disappearing from the human horizon, I said that to a friend of mine. He said, "You know what our job as men is, right?" And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "To make sure it doesn't disappear."
Wow.
That's our job. You guys keep it up, man. Great job. Good to have you on the show. Yeah, keep up the good fight. Yeah, boom. All right. Father, as only you can take us out.
Well, may our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week on Life on the Rock.